Hey there YouTube! Late night Chaos Cuber back again with another video. Today I have a very cool, interesting modification by Core Cube Mods. But before I get to that, I should probably explain what this whole puzzle advent calendar thing is. As you can see in the title of the video, this is day 13. If you want to make sure not to miss any of the upcoming videos and you want to look back in the previous videos in this thing, I'll make sure to link the playlist in the description below and also the trailer for the whole event. But anyway, the Puzzle Advent Calendar is an ambitious collaboration between a whole bunch of YouTube puzzle video creators and some of the most talented modders and designers in the community. We're coming together from December 1st through 24th. We did it last year and now we're doing it again in 2019 to showcase a lot of their work and basically just try and solve some really interesting puzzles. So anyway, enough of that. Without further ado, let's get right into this puzzle. Okay, so after that little intro deal, here is the puzzle for today. As I mentioned before, this is by Core Cube Mods. There's his business card right there. It's a really cool layer design with his logo and all that. Check out his Instagram, Core Cube Mods, and I guess he has an Etsy store on here as well. And of course, he also specializes, I guess, in making these little 3D printed stands. So he gave me this one right here with the logo on it. Very, very cool. So anyway, what exactly kind of cube is this? First off, I noticed the really interesting color scheme, which is basically red and green. Guess that's going with the holiday theme. This is supposed to be a present iCube. A 3x3x2 present iCube, I guess is how it's described. Go over turning here in a second, but first I'd probably take a second to appreciate the build quality of this puzzle. Obviously you can't see it through the screen, but just kind of holding and playing around with this puzzle, it feels almost factory. It's a very, very nice feeling puzzle, and I guess we can also do some size comparisons here. There is a normal 3x3 mirror blocks cube, and as you can see is pretty much exactly the same size, about the 57 millimeters that one is, and also compared to normal 3x3 it's also exactly the same size. So I'll be interested to see and take a look at the mechanism here in a minute to actually see what makes this thing tick and how it's all put together. Also the stickers, as you can see, are very, very nice professionally cut stickers. And also you can tell a little bit of a seam right there, so that might actually tell us the mechanism just a little bit. But anyway, I guess we should probably get into turning and figure out exactly what this thing is. Like I said, it's a 3x3x2 iCube, but what does that exactly mean? Well, I mean, I can try and describe it a little bit, but I'm not super well versed in all these types of puzzles. But basically an iCube is a cube that acts like a different cube than it looks. As far as I understand, I don't know, it's a bandaged 3x3 modification. It's a mirror blocks here, but it also looks like a 3x3x2 with 2 layers on this side, on this axis, and 3 layers on this axis. As you can see, it also will shapeshift quite a bit, which adds to the whole bandaging thing. If I move this layer 90 degrees, I can move the other layer here, but if I move it 180 degrees, it is fully bandaged and has no movement there. So I guess it's going to be very, very similar to an actual 3x3x2 solve. I'll be able to tell here in a minute when I try and solve it. But it's an interesting concept, and like I said, I'm not too well versed in it. I have one other iCuboid. This is just an iCube, but also might be an iCuboid since it's 3x3x2. I don't know. So I guess what else can I go over on this? I guess I'll just try and get some turning sound samples and also try and pop it apart and see how it works on the inside. So actually, this puzzle really does not feel like it's 3D printed whatsoever. I do believe this is mainly just a hand modification. Might be wrong. We'll see when I pop it apart. But let's just get a sound sample here. Actually sounds fairly similar to something like a mirror cube. It's just a little bit of the dry and I don't know what exactly call it, tight feeling. They get kind of from a Shangshao mirror blocks cube. And let's see how hard this is going to be to pop apart. I'm not exactly sure. I should probably loosen one side here, so I'll probably do that. Just to make sure I don't damage anything by trying to pull on it. At least on a couple of sides here, the stock hardware is still visible, so it should be easy enough to disassemble here. And let's just carefully get right into it. Shouldn't be too hard to reassemble either. There's your internal mechanism, and I guess right there you can see the bandaging. So I do believe after seeing this is actually just a standard mirror blocks mechanism, and that it has these pieces which would usually be free moving, bandaged, and turned into an additional layer right here. So actually I'll be really interested to see how that affects the solving experience, but I guess that's where the iCube and iCube comes from. If I carefully rotate this back, if we can see anything else on this side of the puzzle. And not all that much to see except for the bandage piece right here. Done very well. Definitely feels pretty solid, and it's glued together very well, aligned and stickered, where you can barely even tell, except for the little crease right there, which shows up a little bit less in real life than it does on camera. And there is your piece. Okay, well, let me get this thing back together, and let's try and get into the solve of this cube. That's definitely going to be one of the more difficult parts of this puzzle, is where to even start on the solve. I guess the logical thing would be to scramble it. So I guess I'll just try and do a bunch of turns here till it seems fairly scrambled. I believe it's going to turn into a mess real quick here, because it's going to look something like a mix between, well, actually, you know what? Oh, there you go. That'll move right there. But it's actually already becoming pretty bandaged and pretty difficult to move. Well, that's one of those things that you encounter with iCubes and similar, is just the issue of turning after a little while, because basically they get all sorts of bandage. So there's usually a proper scramble pattern. That would be the way to go about scrambling this. And actually, here we go. That seems a little bit easier. Now, I thought I had something there. Basically, if you just do R and U moves, it was seeming to move a little bit more, but it just seems to be a matter of playing around with it enough and trying and get it scrambled. So let me do that for a minute, and I'll come back. Okay, and there we go. I think that's fairly well scrambled. I try and get most of the pieces separated from each other, and with the limited turning, just get everything pretty well scrambled up. As you can see, this is quite a jumble, and I really find it interesting, kind of the gaps and the overlaps and all those type of things that are present in an iCube like this due to the bandaging. I'm going to scramble a normal mirror blocks cube and just show you the comparison there. It's definitely quite a bit different with this thing. As you can see, obviously it doesn't bandage quite as much, but also if I scramble this up a little bit, as you can see, all the pieces are still aligned no matter which way I turn them. So obviously it's just not bandaged compared to this thing, which is quite a bit different. Like there's this long piece going right here, which removes movement on this axis. And on this top axis, there's a piece right here, which is sort of misaligned. Well, actually, it would be these two pieces right here, which are sort of misaligned with the whole layer and will not allow it to turn. It's definitely more, I'd say, towards an intuitive solve than a super repeatable and logical one, which I think some people enjoy, and I'd say I'm probably not in that camp. Not that I probably couldn't come to enjoy it, but currently I really do not solve a lot of iCubes. Enough talking about it, let's try and figure out how to solve this. I will be kind of coming on and off camera, I guess just try and show you how I would go about figuring this thing out, which obviously the first goal would be to get a layer. I would say that solving this like a 2x2x3 may be the most possible way to do it, which I wonder if you want to solve it on the 2-layer or if you want to actually solve it on the 3-layer first. Right now I'm sort of going about the center ring right here, but I guess let's do some turning and see where it takes me. That's kind of in the nature of this puzzle, is you can do some intuitive parts to the solve, which is kind of interesting. And there you go. I'm not sure if that's going to help me or not, but just right off the bat, I was able to get this middle layer pretty easily. So I'm sort of wondering if I should try and go about solving this more like a 3x3 rather than a 3x3x2, even though I think that might come into play at some point. Well, I'm going to try this out for now, and we'll see if I can do anything. Basically just doing like U moves, and then turning this out of the way, and restoring, etc. Sort of like a cuboid solve, possibly. Okay, so I sort of transitioned to just trying like a 3x3x2 right now for a minute. And one interesting thing, and this is why you get so much weird bandaging on this cube, is it's basically a 3x3x2 that sort of acts like a 3x3 mirror blocks. As you can see, like right here, this piece is level with the first layer, but there's two pieces there. So that is really, really odd and definitely contributes to the difficulty of this puzzle. As you can see, I think I have one corner in right there, and I'm just working on getting these other corners in. I guess this one's in there too. Another thing with this puzzle, I think there's a lot less possible permutations of it, which actually makes the solve a little bit easier. So with enough playing around, I think I get pretty close to having a solve. The top layer is going to be kind of an issue. I think trying some different 3x3x2 algs, which I'll probably have to look back up since I haven't solved a 3x3x2 in a little while, just to recall them, might be the difficult part. And I might figure out here sooner or later exactly which layer I should be solving first. But I guess for now, I'm just kind of trying with different things. Like see right there, if you want to try and rotate this piece right here, usually for 3x3x2, go like that, rotate out of the way, rotate it back, and like that. So it's not going to work on this puzzle. Definitely a bit of a challenge, which is interesting. Traditional inserts, I think, work better than they would on a 3x3x2, which obviously that would be impossible on a 3x3x2 to do a traditional insert. Ah, okay, well that's really interesting. Well, so this was kind of confusing me for a little bit. This sort of looks like a centerpiece right there, but obviously it's offset. So here's an interesting thing with the cuboid, or iCube I should say, is as you can see all these pieces are in, just kind of through trial and error. And I was like, well, I can try and rotate. I can put this one in and a couple different orientations. But that did not seem to be doing it for me. So where exactly do I go from there? Which piece goes right here and actually fits correctly? And then I try to sledgehammer. Which that might be the key to part of the solve. Because there you go. That piece that looks sort of like a centerpiece. And now this one really looks like a centerpiece. But either way, I think we're into the next step of this. And that is in the less bandaged stage. As you can see, now we can move this on all axes until I really get something to go off of. This is definitely a bit of a trial and error solve until I can figure this whole thing out. So I guess to see if these are in the correct orientation, obviously these ones are. So if I rotate these enough, they should probably, yep, I thought align with centers there. This one's actually not going to align with the center. These aren't relative to each other where they should be. I believe this one should probably be over here. So I'll probably try some algorithms like maybe Soons and other stuff like that to see if I can get some different outcomes. As you can see, that switched those two. So that's definitely going to be part of the way to go about it. Just as easy as that, you can do like the 3x3, I don't know what you call that exactly, but set a move for OLL. And as you can see, we now have the whole cross. Obviously these two pieces are swapped, which may be a parity of sorts and need to be fixed elsewhere. But it could also just be me not knowing how this whole thing works. And this would actually be a case I know if it were possible to do on here, which it's not. So I'll have to play around with that a little bit more and get back to you once I get closer. I think Soons are going to be one of the ways to go about this whole thing. And there you go. With enough Soons, just kind of going back to beginner's method like you use for Master Morphics and other puzzles like that. As you can see, we have all of the edges in the proper place and permuted correctly. Now trying to get these is probably going to be the more difficult part. I'm not sure if I'll be able to get it from this step, so I'll have to play around with it a little bit and see if I can do it. But as you can see, that is getting closer and closer to solved. And super intuitively, which is kind of interesting, if I'm honest. But obviously, if I rotate this down 90 degrees, now we have two pieces in the bottom layer. It definitely is somewhat of a challenge to try and figure out how to get these into the spot they need to be. It may be simple, it may be difficult, maybe not possible at this stage, but let's keep going and let's see if we can figure it out. Well, it is interesting that you can do an actual A-perm from this whole jumble. It doesn't bandage at all, so actually I'm going to go off of that and try some different perms and see if any of those do something that'll help. Y-perm maybe? Yeah, I find it interesting that at least you can even do those perms, though I don't think it's doing what needs to be done there because it's more of an OLL thing to try and rotate those to begin with. So I think once I get these all rotated, actually permuting them shouldn't be that difficult. It may be just as simple as a 3x3 last layer and just doing the OLL first and then the PLL. And I might just be going about it all the wrong way and just kind of overcomplicating it. As you can see, this looks like a fairly simple OLL case. And there you go. Actually, that did it. I'm pretty surprised. I thought this puzzle was going to be a little bit more challenging than it's turned out to be, but it seems to just be concepts that I can actually handle, which is good. I'm actually interested in that. And I'm wondering if it's going to matter if I have those permuted now or not. But let's try PLL. This looks like a G-perm. I don't think I'm going to be able to do a... Nope, not going to be able to do a G-perm because the way I do it, I have a bottom layer and a top layer turn. So I can do some A-perms and a variant on some other stuff there and try and get that done. And see, yep, it is the same thing there. Okay, so let's do an A-perm like this. This is like the full two-look PLL that I used to do, and there is a U-perm. And that's not going to work the way I do it, so I'm going to have to try and learn how to do a different U-perm. I might look up the 2gen. Yep, that's exactly what I'm going to have to do, is look up the 2gen RU algorithms for U-perm, which I actually don't know off the top of my head because I use the front U-perms, bad habit, or just the way I learned them, I should say, which is sort of like that. So instead of doing that, I'm going to have to do the RU U-perms, which I know there's M U-perms, I know there's RU U-perms. I'm going to assume that's not a cheat or a hack, or no, what do you call that? Yeah, I guess cheating to look that up, because I just do not know that algorithm or know where to start. But as you can see, very, very close to solved, and I believe it's just a U-perm away. I'm surprised how simple that was. Okay, so like I said, I'm not super well versed in these puzzles, so this might be false or true, but from what I can tell on different forums, just a quick glance, trying to find a U-perm that just uses R's and U's. All of the U-perms I could find had an R2 in it, which obviously doesn't work in this cube, and that may be where one of the challenges in this puzzle lies, is that the only movements that you're freed up to do is any rotation on the top layer here, if you're solving it like this, R inverted, L inverted, and then obviously like back single moves and front single moves. You cannot do an R2, front 2, left 2, or back 2. You can obviously only do that on the U layer. So trying to use that for PLL is going to be pretty difficult, but a lot of people are saying that you should permute your edges before you go into the actual PLL. So I might not be able to get this done this way, but I'll still try. I'm probably just going to try some intuitive stuff since I'm not sure the U-perm thing is going to work out, and see where I can get from there. I may try to go about getting the edges done and then trying to go and get the corners done separately from that. But U-perm seems almost like a dead end, which is kind of unfortunate, but that would just be too simple, wouldn't it? And there you go. After doing that OLL there, I have only a 3 cycle left. I need to be able to cycle these 3 pieces. Might look up some 2gen 3 cycle algs because I do not know any of those off the top of my head, and I don't really want to mess it up at this point. Now that we're pretty close here, it's basically just an RU 3 cycle, if that exists. that should solve this whole thing. Well, that's slightly embarrassing or slightly weird, but I just realized in the last scene there, I was just showing an A-perm. I did an A-perm algorithm, which I believe is like this, and it solved it right up. That was super simple. Obviously, this is the other A-perm here. Camera to focus, but that's all it was. I was basically in a pure A-perm case. Super, super simple. No need for any sort of fancy maneuvers or anything. For some reason, on this cube, A-perms are one of those algorithms that works correctly. So basically, I got myself to a state with the edges all correct, and these needing, or basically just need a 3-cycle in the corners, and we solved it. Well, that's funny because I worked on that whole thing for a long time, and it was just as simple as an A-perm. Definitely was not super happy when I realized that, oh, look, it's just an A-perm. I'm just dumb. But anyway, there we go. That is the solve on the 3x3x2 iCube, or iCuboid. So I don't know exactly what it's called. He calls it an iCube, so I'm going to call it that, I guess. So basically, this is a present mirror iCube by Core Mods, and that's going to be about it. And that's about where I'm going to end off for today. That's it for day 13 of the Puzzle Advent Calendar. Hope you enjoyed. Next up, and tomorrow, is a video by Red KB. You won't want to miss that. That one's going to be pretty interesting. This whole Puzzle Advent Calendar event is really fun so far. Hope everybody's enjoying, following along, and like I said, that's about it. Thanks again to Core Cube Mods for sending me that cube. Very interesting solve, very interesting puzzle. Chaos Cuber out. Goodbye.